Finally, the Hawks have finally made Dejounte Murray available for trade. And according to one NBA insider, he notes that the New York Knicks are going to be extremely active trying to get Dejounte Murray on the roster. We're going to break down this explosive report and so much more today. So be sure you're subscribed to the channel and have notifications turned on so you don't miss a second of the new content. And now, let's get started. The Hawks have finally made Dejounte Murray available for trade. After weeks of hearing reports that potentially the Hawks may trade DeAndre Hunter, Clint Capella, and possibly Dejounte Murray, we now have confirmation from multiple NBA insiders that the Hawks will absolutely be trading Dejounte Murray, and many sources believe he'll be moved before the trade deadline. This is coming from NBA insider Chris Haynes, who expects Dejounte Murray to be traded. His exact quote was, "I do believe Dejounte Murray will likely be traded by the deadline. That's my belief." If that's not enough, Yahoo Sports' Jake Fisher also states the following about the Knicks and their pursuit of Dejounte Murray, who he states will absolutely be available. Here's his exact quote. "The Knicks aren't done. They saved all their first-round picks. They still have Evan Fournier stock. It's all true. They are going to be involved in the Dejounte Murray talks. They could get back an old friend like Alec Burks. There's plenty of point guards out there for the taking if they want to open up some. Not even a point guard, just some type of ball-handling guy who can help relieve Jalen Brunson." And then he went in even further about Dejounte Murray being available. According to Jake Fisher of Yahoo Sports, he notes that the premier point guard on the market before February 8th trade deadline may be Atlanta's Dejounte Murray, a former All-Star whom the Hawks have made widely available, according to league sources, 2 years after trading for Murray for 3 first-round picks to acquire him from San Antonio. Shout out to Chris Haynes and Jake Fisher of Yahoo Sports for giving us this massive update about Dejounte Murray being available for trade. And as you heard, according to Jake Fisher, the Knicks are absolutely going to be involved to try to get Dejounte Murray on this roster. This is just helping to confirm things that we've been reporting for the last few weeks, but we've definitely not had confirmation on it. We've just heard speculation around the league from a couple of NBA insiders stating that the Hawks were likely going to be sellers at the trade deadline. And now we have confirmation from multiple NBA insiders noting that the Hawks have made Dejounte Murray available. They are going to trade him before the trade deadline, and it's likely the New York Knicks are going to be aggressive in their pursuit of him. And Jake Fisher notes that the Knicks have a lot of assets to dangle in front of the Hawks to try to acquire Dejounte Murray from the Hawks. You have Evan Fournier in his contract, which he's expiring after this year. That means you get him off the books. That means you have that cap space to use to go out and get another star to pair with Trae Young. That's what you're thinking if you're the Hawks. Another thing is you get the picks that you traded back. If you're trading with the Knicks have a boatload of picks to trade with the Atlanta Hawks. They have a number of protected picks. They have a number of their own unprotected picks that they can offer as well too. The Knicks could also put some protections on their own picks when they trade them out for that star or superstar player, just to make sure they're safe in case the worst happens. But that's other things the Knicks can do to safeguard themselves when they make these potential moves. But it's music to my ears that the New York Knicks are looking to potentially add Dejounte Murray to this roster. If we all remember witnessing the beatdown last night when the New York Knicks teared a hole into the Philadelphia 76ers, beating them by more than 30 points, something that I don't think they've done in 40 plus years. This is what this Knicks team is doing just by trading for OG Anunoby. Imagine if this Knicks team trades for Dejounte Murray. In my opinion, the perfect backcourt mate to Jalen Brunson. You get Dejounte Murray on this roster, and you can take some of the ball handling responsibilities away from Jalen Brunson. That means you give him a break, you give him a rest. That means in other games that you need him for, he's more well rested. He's going to give you that scoring. In terms of catch and shoot, he is one of the best catch and shoot shooters in the league. And you got a playmaker like Dejounte Murray pulling defenders and then opening up the paint for Jalen Brunson? Jalen Brunson, who's a mid-range god already, shooting better than 50% in the mid-range this season? Come on now. You can't do that. If you do that, if you add this piece to the New York Knicks, in my opinion, you've just created a contender for the New York Knicks, depending on the pieces and the assets that you've given up. And if you make it out to be that you're just giving up Evan Fournier and a couple of picks, I'm doing it any day. I am doing it any day for Dejounte Murray. And Evan Fournier's contract matches up perfectly with Dejounte Murray's contract. And if the Hawks just want picks, if they just want picks that they can utilize to get other talent around Jalen Johnson, around Trae Young, around the other young pieces they have with the Hawks, then I think moves like this with the Knicks would behoove them, would benefit them, would help them tremendously. And that's why I would say that the Atlanta Hawks would do this. And then they could waive Evan Fournier after this season, create some cap space, and then go out there and get that other star that they believe fits better with Trae Young. Because clearly, the Dejounte Murray experiment has not worked. It's failed. They don't work together. They don't look good together. But in my opinion, Dejounte Murray with the New York Knicks would be phenomenal because he fits here. Jalen Brunson is absolutely more of a shooting guard, and Dejounte Murray plays point guard very well. He's a playmaker, he's a passer, he can shoot the ball, great defender. As Jake Fisher just mentioned, he's a former All-Star as well too. And if you don't have to break the bank to get him, why not do it? And he's the perfect backcourt mate for Jalen Brunson. Again, because of his size and because of his defense and the way he plays the passing lane, and Tom Thibodeau would absolutely love him. And according to Jake Fisher, he actually goes into more information here on why the Atlanta Hawks may be sellers at the trade deadline. According to Fisher, Atlanta owes its 2025 first-round selection to San Antonio as part of the haul that landed Murray. So there's plenty of sense for the Hawks, currently 14-19, to weigh some selling of its veteran contributors, incorporating a lottery pick alongside Young and Johnson, and then stepping back toward Atlanta's bigger goal of competing in the playoffs under head coach Quinn Snyder next season. Atlanta has been one of the more active teams on the phone across the league, and that seller's path becoming more likely has league personnel no longer considering the Hawks as a prominent potential landing spot for Toronto's other trade deadline darling, Pascal Siakam, now that the Raptors ultimately moved on from Anunoby. This is extremely important to note because, as Jake Fisher just mentioned, if the Hawks were able to trade for Pascal Siakam, their idea was going to be to pair Pascal, Trae Young, and Dejounte Murray together to create the new big three for the Hawks moving forward in the future. Because they're not going to land Pascal, that just absolutely means that the Hawks are going to be sellers at the trade deadline. And that also means that they're likely going to move on from Dejounte Murray. As we just heard here from Jake Fisher, Atlanta owes its 2025 first-round selection to San Antonio. The Knicks have a protected Milwaukee pick in 2025. They could potentially package that Milwaukee pick, a couple of their own picks, or their other protected picks that they own, and Evan Fournier, who again, his contract fits perfectly with Dejounte Murray's, and trade that to the Atlanta Hawks for Murray. And maybe they can go ahead and get some other pieces from the Hawks as well too, because Jake Fisher did note that the New York Knicks have been actively trying to get a backup point guard on the New York Knicks. You can see the report here from Jake Fisher. As he notes, executives around the league are preparing for the New York Knicks to explore backcourt options as Miles McBride receives extended minutes. He also noted that the New York Knicks made outgoing calls on veteran big men after losing Mitchell Robinson to ankle injury. But after the addition of Precious Achiuwa alongside OG Anunoby, the Knicks are primarily seeking backcourt options. Clearly, the New York Knicks know exactly what they need. Before this OG Anunoby trade, they were on the phones trying to get some backup replacements for Mitchell Robinson because that's what they needed. But since they got Precious Achiuwa in the OG Anunoby deal, they stopped doing that and they focused on backcourt options. And that's exactly what they need to do, because after seeing that beatdown last night the New York Knicks put on the 76ers, we can absolutely see that if the New York Knicks had another backcourt mate with Jalen Brunson, somebody who is a little bit taller, who played a little bit more defense, who was in the passing lane, who could score, who could pull defenses, who is an actual scoring threat. Let's also add on to the fact that if the Knicks were able to get Dejounte Murray, they would be able to get all of that, plus a former All-Star, plus a former All-NBA defender. I keep hearing about Dejounte Murray and potential fit with Jalen Brunson not working, or maybe he doesn't defend as well, and he's not that great of a defender. Let me tell you this. He's tall. He definitely can pull defenders. He can shoot the ball. He can make plays. He's a playmaker. He's more of a pure point guard. Jalen Brunson off ball, we saw in Dallas, is money. It works. And of course, Jalen Brunson playing point guard works as well too. Who's to say those two can't switch in the backcourt where Jalen sometimes play point guard and then off ball, Murray plays sometimes when the matchups favor that. And if the matchups don't favor that, they can switch. But that's what it offers you. It offers you the chance to get size at the point guard position when you need it in a favorable matchup. And Tom Thibodeau would absolutely love that. He'd be able to do that with both of them on the floor. And since they both can make their own shot, get their own shot, create their own shot, and clearly they both can pass, get others involved. That's what you're going to be able to have on the floor at all times with Jalen Brunson and Dejounte Murray. That's why it would work, and that's why if I think the New York Knicks made that deal, made that trade, that they would absolutely be contenders in the NBA. We saw what they're doing now. We saw the type of team they have right now. Imagine if you can add Dejounte Murray to this. It would absolutely be sensational. What starting five would want to mess with this Knicks starting five with Dejounte Murray added to it? Who could take that team on defensively? Everything is pointing to that. I can see it too clearly. The picks the Knicks have, what Atlanta wants, these reports from Jake Fisher, Chris Haynes, all of these other NBA insiders, it's already written there. We just have to read through the lines. The Knicks are active. They're calling. The Hawks are absolutely sellers at the deadline. They want more picks. They want to be able to pair young talent right behind Trae Young and Jalen Johnson. The Knicks have all of that and more to offer to the Hawks. And if you look around the league, there is not a team that's going to be able to offer a better package of picks than the New York Knicks. And that's why I believe a deal gets done. But what about you guys? What do you think about this explosive news that the Atlanta Hawks are making Dejounte Murray available for trade, and it's likely he's not going to be part of Atlanta by the trade deadline? Let me know in the comments below, guys, because honestly, I would love to hear from you. But that's going to do it for this episode. I hope you enjoyed it, and if you did, go ahead and smash that like button, leave a comment below, and of course, guys, please subscribe to the channel. Until next time, Knicks fans. Peace.